Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter, or of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's start off with the question. Has Vince McMahon taken over boxing? This is Bradley Nuttall's idea at Bradley Nuttall1. You could also find him at Cold Box. He's looking to start his own boxing channel. So shout out there to Bradley. And the reason we've been asking this question is because so many fighters have become heels of late, super villains, causing a whole bunch of controversy. Some people find it really distasteful. I personally find it really entertaining. You know, the difference between arrogance and cockiness for me when it comes to boxers is that a cocky guy will love himself, can often say things with tongue in cheek, but he can target other fighters. What I don't like is when I see boxers target fans. When they're cool with fans, but they're putting it on other boxers, that's part of the entertainment, that's part of the build-up. But one of the supervillains that has emerged that you wouldn't have expected to become a supervillain is none other than Anthony Joshua. For those of you that might not know the background of this story, a number of years ago, Amir decided to put it on Anthony Joshua publicly on Twitter, accusing him of sleeping with his wife. Now, they were cool apparently prior to this, and Amir should have really picked up the phone and confronted Anthony Joshua if that's what he felt. But instead, he decided to put it on Twitter. Now, Anthony Joshua at the time, instead of denying it or picking up the phone to call him in response, he put a tweet out whereby he had Shaggy's tune, "It Wasn't Me," as the tweet. Now, for those of you that might not be familiar with that song, Shaggy in the song denies that he's cheated on his girl with another girl, but he did in fact do it. So he was guilty of sin, pretending to be innocent. So that got people talking. Is AJ rubbing salt in the wound here? Is he actually guilty? He's clearly having a bit of fun at the expense of Amir Khan. Amir Khan went on to have more of a public meltdown. He was accused publicly of having a sexualized conversation or a flirty conversation with a trans model. No idea whether Amir knew that this model was trans or even whether Amir Khan was indeed having these inappropriate conversations. These are allegations. I have no idea, of course. But he was also accused of having a session of, shall we call it, self-pleasure on Skype with another woman. And that also allegedly went viral. And he was accused of that too. So he had a tough time of it. Well, now that he's down, I mean, talk about kicking a dude while he's down. Somebody asked Anthony Joshua, is it true that you did sleep with Amir Khan's wife back in the day? And AJ, with no chill whatsoever, just replied, honestly, I didn't. But with all the accusations around my name, I wish I did. Oh dear, Anthony. Talk about WWE really putting it on a guy. That is terrible from AJ. I wish we could see a little bit of Amir Khan clapback just for the entertainment. But talk about being harsh. But it's not just AJ, is it? We found out that Jack Catterall is the victim of the WBO once again. The WBO have decided that they're going to make the number one contender Liam Parrow, who is 22-0, and he will be fighting Teofimo Lopez. That will be the fight for the vacant belt if Josh Taylor is to vacate the belt. So Jack Catterall is obviously fuming. He's upset at this. Liam Parrow, while he's 22-0, he's ranked at 26 via BoxRec. The right thing would have been for Jack Catterall to get an opportunity. Let's be real here. But Josh Taylor, being a super villain of his own, decided to put out an Instagram message to say, quick, you better phone the police. Now, a lot of people have gotten angry at this as well. Jack Catterall himself accused Josh Taylor of having no class. But listen, these are the things that I love to see. This is what builds up rivalries. It also opens the door potentially for a rematch here, because Catterall is not next in line for a shot, so he's free. Josh Taylor's going to be moving up, so if Jack Catterall's free, it opens the window, doesn't it, for a rematch to occur. Whereas if Jack Catterall was made mandatory and Josh Taylor wasn't willing to defend those belts because he wants to move up, then it kills the potential of any rematch. Think about that. So this is a good thing. It adds to the spice of it. But yes, Josh Taylor is definitely going down that WWE route where he's looking to put it on Jack Catterall verbally. And regardless of whose side you fall on here, it is entertaining. This is what I like to see. This adds some spice to the fight. Let me know what you think. I know that Josh Taylor isn't the most popular of dudes right now. Personally, I can't help but being a fan. I think he's a wonderful fighter. I do think he would beat Jack Catterall in a rematch. I do. I do think he lost that first fight. I made that quite clear. But I think with some adjustments, he'd win. I love the fact that he's willing to speak his mind. I've been a big fan of him being willing to do that over the last couple of years. And if that's going to spill over into him trash talking other fighters, I'm all for it. It adds to the entertainment. Let me know what you think about that. But it's not just him either. It doesn't stop here. Everybody's trash talking everybody. Joyce came out and put it on Shane McGuigan after Shane McGuigan basically predicted that Anthony Joshua would stop Joyce. He beat him twice in the amateurs, stopping him twice in the amateurs, according to Shane McGuigan. He definitely stopped him in the first round in one of their amateur fights. This was a long time ago. They have both, of course, developed greatly since then. But Shane McGuigan feels that yeah, he's got his number, and AJ wouldn't have too many problems with him. And he was quite dismissive in the way that he spoke of Joyce. And Joyce said, I used to have respect for McGuigan. I take it all back. You have no respect for what I have achieved and will achieve. I'm so glad I didn't sign with your Cyclone family. Tell your son, this is copying in Barry now, McGuigan, the father of Shane, tell your son to wind his neck in and concentrate on picking up Triple D off of his knees. Daniel Dubois, of course, took the knee against Joyce, the fighter of Shane McGuigan, after their fight. And that was a little knock there, a little dig at Dubois and Shane McGuigan, and basically telling them both, you're below me, you begged me to come to you, I've lost all respect for you. Now, Sonny Edwards decided to get involved, and for those of you that might not know, Sonny Edwards is very close to the whole MTK, Probellum sort of stable. They've got their beef, of course, with the McGuigan gym. That's been a long-running feud. That may be the root of this, the basis of this, or perhaps it's something more personal between the two guys. Sonny Edwards seemed to hint that there was history between him and McGuigan himself. McGuigan tried to call him a scumbag publicly, which Edwards felt was unwarranted. I'm not too sure of what led to all this, of course. I'm not taking any sides. I don't know who's right and who's wrong in their personal beef, but he got involved, and he got very personal. He said Shane walked in on his missus getting her back blown out by his best friend, that he was taken away with him to all the fights and spending hours in the gym with all the lads. Pass it on, hashtag Dingo. Dingo is the nickname of the friend that allegedly slept with the wife of Shane McGuigan. Now, somebody said, surely this can't be true. No way, did that really happen? And the guy decided to insult Shane McGuigan too and said that's what you get when you're dipping your hands into other fighters' pockets. That, of course, is alluding to the beef between McGuigan and Carl Frampton. Again, I'll reiterate, I have no idea what is true here. Different people make different allegations. I don't know what's going on between these guys. But Sonny Edwards said, to be fair, that story's a half truth. His mate was down and he couldn't work out why. He was taking him out for drinks and food, trying to be there for him. Turns out his mate's missus found out about the affair and said that if he didn't tell Shane, she will. I added in the walking in bit for effect. So now he's trolling and admitting that he's exaggerated the fact that he walked in on him, but he's still teasing the fact that Shane McGuigan's wife left him for his friend. Now, a lot of people since then have put things up on Instagram showing the ex of Shane McGuigan and saying, look, she's still with this guy called Dingo. I have no idea what is true and what is not. Shane McGuigan responded and said, one day I'm going to go rogue on Twitter. Today is not the day. No need to rise to a pygmy, in reference to Sonny Edwards. And Sonny Edwards clapped back again, saying, the worst thing is his dad is the same height as me. That's a thought. Where did Shane get his extra foot from? We know that he didn't get his fighting ability from his dad. So now what is he doing there? Is he hinting that Shane's mum cheated on him with somebody else? Why is he asking where did he get the height from? Is it from somebody else, basically? I don't know, man. But this is the most below the belt out of all of them. You could see Sonny Edwards, Joyce going in on Shane McGuigan, who remained reserved and controlled. You can take all this as you will. For me, listen, it's very, very harsh. It's way below the belt, but when people have got personal beefs and you don't know what's led to them, this is between them. I can't take a side. I think Sonny Edwards is a terrific fighter. I think Shane McGuigan is a terrific trainer. I think Joyce is a terrific heavyweight. So all I can do as a fan is look from afar and say, I think they're all brilliant at what they do. But I can see the beef occurring, and while I can feel sorry for Shane McGuigan, if this is true, that this did indeed occur with him and his friend, that's a terrible thing for anybody to have to go through. I've been lucky enough never to have been cheated on, as far as I know, but I can imagine it being a devastating thing to have to go through. So it's not that that's funny, per se. What's funny is the sheer beef and the fact that no one's holding anything back. No one's pulling any punches. They're just saying what they feel on a public forum, and it adds to the spice and the rivalry of boxing. If Shane McGuigan ever trains a guy who's going to fight Sonny Edwards, or I don't know, Daniel Dubois and a Joyce rematch. Don't these things add to the spice? Now, moving on, let's talk about some of the things that occurred in the ring. Sonny Edwards won last night against Waseem. I know a lot of people have been saying, hold on a sec, he got hit a little bit too much. Waseem was forcing him back onto the ropes. He was putting the nut in. He was landing a lot of left hooks to the body, to be fair. He did have some success to the body of Sonny Edwards with that left hook quite consistently throughout the course of the fight. And I get that a lot of people were critical of that, but you have to understand something as well. Paul Smith was very, very astute at talking about the fact that on multiple occasions there were opportunities for Edwards to escape from the ropes, to get his back off the ropes and move away, and he chose not to. He carried on trying to fight with his back off the ropes, looking to counter on the inside, looking to cover up and stay safe. And this is something that a lot of people need to try and understand when they're watching an upper echelon fighter, because that's what Sonny Edwards is. In terms of sheer ability, for me, he's on the pound for pound list. He's just yet to prove it. But the skill set the man's got at his disposal is quite incredible. I could watch this boy box all day and not get bored. What he's trying to do against a guy like Waseem is work on things that perhaps he's not 100% comfortable with. He's already mastered the ability to move fluidly, get on the outside, and you saw glimpses of that. The movement, the setting the traps, the countering, beautiful stuff. But if he is going to fight a guy like Julio Martinez, a big puncher who's got some great variation with his shots, incessant in the pressure that he applies, and, you know, like I said, a very heavy-handed guy, Sonny Edwards could be in a position where at moments he gets his legs taken away from him. And if he's in a position where he's got his back up against the ropes and Martinez is trying to open up on him, Sonny Edwards can't feel as though he's out of his depth. So he's got to work on things. So he was comfortable. He was looking throughout to deflect and block shots and stop Waseem from working, and fighting Waseem's fight in doing so. And that is how you develop certain skills. You know, we talk about the likes of Anthony Joshua and whether he should fight as a big man or whether he should continue to try and add this fluidity. We've spoken about this in the past regarding Chris Eubank Jr. as well. I personally feel that Chris Eubank should perhaps work on trying to master being a pressure fighter. Hatman was saying how he really liked what he was doing with Roy Jones Jr. And he did look very, very good in his last fight against Liam Williams, to be fair. But the difference is, in my position with regards to Eubank, say, compared to Sonny Edwards, is that I still think that Eubank has some work to do to master that pressure fighting style. He could still work on certain things to be able to cut the ring off and force a guy into exchanges. Whereas Sonny Edwards has already mastered being an outside fighter. So he's now looking to add wrinkles. I'm never against that. You know, the best fighters in the world are the ones who are adaptable and adjustable. Same with actors. Like I've said before, I've used this example in the past. You can be a great actor that is brilliant at one specific role. You can play a really good villain, for instance, and you're great at doing it, and you're always cast as a bad guy in movies. But the very best actors, they're the guys who have, you know, the ability to adjust. The men of 1,000 faces, so to speak. Those are the best actors, and that's what you need as a boxer as well if you want to be an elite level fighter that's dominant. So Sonny Edwards was working on some things and he was showing his level once again. He really is a terrific fighter. And I also want to talk about Xander Zayas, who is a superb prospect out in the US. He fought last night on the Top Rank show. He was brilliant. The way he picks his shots, he's aggressive, he's a great athlete, and you can see this young kid, because he is a young kid, who's one of the hottest prospects in the sport. I'm a huge fan. I think he's going to go on to become a superstar. He has continued to develop with Javiel Centeno, who is one of the top trainers in the sport certainly over the last year. He was a real shout for trainer of the year in my humble opinion, and probably or possibly could have got it. He's also a guy that trains George Kambosos, and yet he goes under the radar. You're talking about one of the hottest prospects in the sport in Xander Zayas. You're talking about one of the best lightweights in the world who pulled off a shock to win in dramatic and stunning fashion against Teofimo Lopez, and he goes under the radar. And that is something that he has in common with Grant Smith. Grant Smith, the trainer of Sonny Edwards, who has achieved what he has with Sonny, goes under the radar. He's also the father of Dalton Smith, who is one of the brightest prospects in British boxing. So you're seeing these guys, Javiel Centeno, Grant Smith, these guys are going under the radar, man, but they're doing some terrific things in the sport and they deserve a shout out. Moving on from that, let's talk about Eddie Hall and Thor. It seemed like a gimmick at times. These two men that are former world's strongest men getting in the ring to fight. Surely it's just a bit of a gimmick, but it was great entertainment. And you know, we put speed on a pedestal. Usain Bolt, for instance, rightly so, the fastest man in the world, put on a pedestal as an athlete. We don't treat strength and power in the same way, do we? These guys aren't really superstars in the same way the winner of the 100-meter sprint is. And I wonder why that is, because they're still incredible athletes. And what you saw is that Billy Nelson has done some terrific work with Thor. Now, prior to this fight, I expected Thor to win the fight. Okay, he's very, very good technically for a guy that hasn't been boxing for that long. Like I said, Billy Nelson's done a terrific job. Eddie Hall, from what I'd seen on the pads, was wild. But something that I also felt is that it wouldn't be as one-sided as a lot of people believed. You see, the thing is, when you are a technical fighter, in order to be effective, you have to master that. And mastering that takes a long time. Okay, you see this with traditional martial arts as well. If you want to learn how to defend yourself quite quickly, build confidence quite quickly, then there are certain striking arts that will do that quite efficiently early on. Things like boxing, things like Muay Thai, things like kickboxing. Whereas for the more traditional, very, very technical martial arts, things like Wing Chun, it will take a long time before you're able to really use that in a fight. It's going to take a long time before you're able to master it. And so the point I'm making here is that Thor should never be getting hit with some of the big looping wide hands, right hands from range that Hall couldn't miss with in the first round. But he's not used to seeing that sort of wild swinging because he's not been working on that with Billy Nelson, I wouldn't have assumed. He's been doing the right stuff, the orthodox stuff, the correct stuff that will help him become a better fighter, a better boxer. And over the course of the 6 rounds, yes, that skill set came to the fore. Or you saw how, using the jab, Thor was changing the angles to line up the backhand and things like that. He was throwing a very straight 1-2 from a high position as well. So he'd shoot that backhand from the shoulder. He wouldn't pull back or anything like that. These are really good disciplined things. So Billy Nelson did some great stuff, and Thor was the rightful winner, and I expected him to be. He won the fight on points. There were multiple knockdowns in this fight, but it was a fight I actually enjoyed. This wasn't like one of those YouTube gimmick fights whereby these guys don't know what they're doing. This is more along the lines of a Jake Paul type scenario where Thor and Jake Paul, yes, they're novices, but they're working hard on their craft, and you like to see it. So listen, it's a good advert for boxing in this regard. I personally enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about this. Who do you think would win in a rematch? Do you think Eddie Hall now has the experience and he'd be thinking more along the lines of how to set up that right hand instead of just launching it from out of range where his feet were too far back and Thor was able to eventually read it and take half a step back? Let me know what you think. Moving on from that, finally, let's talk about Berlanga. Edgar Berlanga fought Rolls last night. I personally had the fight a draw. I thought it was 5 rounds apiece. I thought early on there were a lot of swing rounds there. 2 judges had it 7-3 to Berlanga. The truth is, I never expected Rolls to get the decision. You know that the hometown fighter, the guy who is the promoted fighter, is going to get the benefit of the doubt. He's going to get the decision. You expect that, right? So it's one of those whereby it's not a terrible decision, but you sort of expect it before it's going to happen. It could have gone either way. The thing is with Berlanga, they keep telling us about how this guy was a good boxer and more of a boxer as an amateur, and he's become this big, heavy-handed puncher moving forward and an aggressive guy. I personally still have not seen any of the boxing skills. To me, it reminded me of the fight Hamza Shiraz versus Bradley Skeet, with Rolls being Skeet and using a lot of those veteran moves and the understanding of angles to basically jab his face off, and Shiraz couldn't find basically a solution. He just couldn't. Eventually, the way Shiraz won the fight, albeit controversially after punching Skeet when he was down, but he did knock him down, right? He did that by letting go of his hands and attacking off of that second phase of attack and basically moving away from the idea of this is a boxing match, so let's make this into a fight. And you could see Rolls at times when he was leaning back, he'd lean beyond his back leg, his balance was a little bit off at times early in the fight. And you could see that second phase of attack is where Berlanga was going to have success. But he wasn't shooting it as much until the last couple of rounds where he tried to be a lot more aggressive. Prior to that, he was getting caught with a lot of jabs. When Rolls didn't look intimidated and he started to bring that right hand into play, he had a lot of success with it too. He had a lot of success with changing the height of the levels of the jab from upstairs to downstairs, keeping Berlanga off balance, getting him to reset consistently. Berlanga did have some success whereby Rolls would sometimes fall in and fall into the pocket and stay at mid-range, and Berlanga would time him with uppercuts to the body or shovel hooks to the body, a couple even to the head. That was successful for Berlanga. So what Rolls needed to do more of is stay all the way outside and fight a raiding style, or as he lands, the jab followed by the right hand, he falls all the way in and starts to tie up Berlanga. But there were long periods where he just looked a little bit too intimidating. Sometimes you're safer in the eye of the storm than on the periphery, right? He sort of wanted to get in and out quite consistently. That became a little bit predictable. Berlanga was applying a lot of foot pressure, but also tentative in letting his hands go. Berlanga needs a lot of work, man. I don't have a problem with him getting a decision in this fight, but he does need a lot of work. I've not yet seen the evidence for this idea that this guy is, you know, a brilliant boxer as an amateur and he's just changed his style now. To me, he looks like a straight up size guy. Now, that's not to say they can't build him into something. They can. He's a very heavy-handed guy by the looks of it. He's big and strong, but there's work to be done. Let me know what you think with regards to that. Please do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, and of course the notifications button. Let me know what you think about all the topics we've spoken about today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Chat to you soon. God bless.